You tuned in expecting fireworks. Caitlin Clark, Commissioner's Cup, a $500,000 prize on the line. But instead of a highlight reel, you got a gut punch. Because at the last possible second, literally right before tip-off, the Indiana Fever ruled Caitlin Clark out. And just like that, the entire energy of the game flipped on its head. Fans who bought tickets months in advance were left stunned. Analysts were scrambling to rewrite their segments. And on social media, absolute war zone. Outrage, speculation, accusations. What was supposed to be a historic showdown became a full-blown controversy, and the WNBA was suddenly staring down a PR nightmare. Let's break down how we got here, and why this groin injury may go down as one of the most mismanaged moments of Caitlin Clark's rookie year. If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. A game-time decision. That broke the game. The drama didn't start with the announcement. It started with the build-up. All week long, reports swirled that Caitlin Clark was dealing with some kind of lower body issue. Then, suddenly, boom, she's back at practice. Shooting, moving, smiling. The team leaks that she's a game-time decision. Fans are hopeful. Analysts start calling it a bluff. Everyone's watching for that tunnel walk, that first warm-up drill, trying to decipher her every move like it's a Zapruder film. And then, out of nowhere, the Fever announced, Caitlin Clark will not play in tonight's Commissioner's Cup final due to a groin injury. Cue the chaos. People were furious, not just because she was out, but because of how it was handled. This wasn't a normal scratch. This felt like a bait-and-switch, a PR trap, a tease that built expectations only to crash them into the hardwood. 500,000 reasons to be mad. Let's talk about what was actually at stake. This wasn't just another mid-season game. This was a Commissioner's Cup final with $500,000 in prize money on the line. For players in a league where even top salaries don't touch what NBA benchwarmers make, this game matters. It's not just pride. It's rent. It's stability. It's careers. And for Indiana, Clark wasn't just their best player. She was the game plan. She draws double teams. She spaces a floor. She turns broken plays into highlight reels. Without her, the entire offensive identity of the Fever collapses. The team scrambled. Kelsey Mitchell was suddenly expected to run point and create magic. Aaliyah Boston had to anchor the paint and make up for lost firepower. And the Lynx? They didn't even have to guess. They could lock in and attack a suddenly very vulnerable team. Fans turned on the Fever. Fast. It wasn't long before the backlash hit. Social media lit up with angry fans calling the Fever irresponsible, misleading, even shady. Some accused the team of using Clark's name to sell last-minute tickets. Others demanded refunds. A few even suggested Clark herself was being protected by the league for some unknown agenda. Now, those theories? Probably nonsense. But the fact that people even believe them? That says everything about the trust gap right now between WNBA fans and how this league handles transparency. You can't tell people your star player is possibly playing, then yank her in silence right before tip-off and expect no fallout. Not in 2025. Not when the whole world is watching every move Caitlin Clark makes like she's a walking economy. The conspiracy theories start brewing. It didn't take long before sports Twitter had its tinfoil hats on. She looked fine at practice. They're just resting her for ratings. Someone's trying to tank the Fever's shot at the cup. People were pointing fingers everywhere, from Fever head coach Stephanie White to lead commissioner Kathy Engelbert. Others zeroed in on training staff, suggesting mishandling or even internal conflict. But here's the real truth. The silence invited these theories. When fans are told nothing, they'll fill in the blanks with everything. This is the Caitlin Clark effect. Every injury update becomes a potential scandal. Every lineup decision becomes conspiracy. And every absence becomes a full-blown crisis. The groin injury, nobody managed properly. Let's zoom in on the actual injury. Clark has reportedly been dealing with a groin issue for weeks. And you don't need to be a doctor to know groin injuries are tricky. They can linger. They can flare up without warning. And worst of all, they don't heal if you keep pushing them. So why was she playing recently? Why was she running drills in full view of cameras just a day before the Cup final? Was she being pushed to play through pain for ratings? Was she given medical clearance too early? Or was the team simply hoping adrenaline would carry her through? No one knows, because no one's saying anything. And that's where the real damage is being done. Not to Clark's body, but to the Fever's credibility. The WNBA's marketing dream just became a crisis. Let's not forget, Caitlin Clark isn't just a basketball player. She's the reason ticket sales have exploded. She's the one bringing in new fans, new sponsors, new media deals. She's the engine behind the league's historic growth. So when she's out, especially in a high-stakes final, it's not just Indiana that suffers. It's the entire WNBA business model. Broadcasters lose viewers. Sponsors lose exposure. Merchandise sales dip. And all that momentum that Clark built, suddenly it feels like it's hanging by a thread. The league can't afford to have its biggest stars sidelined in silence. Not now. Not when the world is finally watching. The mental game, a team shaken, a league wary. Behind the scenes, you can only imagine the pressure. The Fever had to recalibrate their entire game plan in hours. Players who expected to be second options became focal points. Defensive strategies had to be scrapped and rewritten. Team chemistry, already fragile, took a major hit. And on the other side, the Minnesota Lynx smelled blood. They walked into that game knowing they no longer had to deal with a player who could drop 30 on them from anywhere on the court. It's not just a physical shift. It's a mental one. When a star sits, it demoralizes. It destabilizes. And in a league this tight, that's often all it takes. What happens now? This entire situation, one poorly managed groin injury, has opened up massive questions for the WNBA moving forward. How should teams communicate injuries for marquee players? What responsibility does a league have to protect its biggest stars and be transparent with fans? Should players like Clark be given stricter rest schedules, even when the stakes are high? And most importantly, how do you maintain the league's momentum when your star isn't on the court? The Fever will need to regroup fast. Clark's long-term health matters more than one cup game, but the damage done in one night won't be forgotten anytime soon. The Caitlin Clark Commissioner's Cup saga isn't just a moment. It's a mirror. It shows us how far the WNBA has come and how much further it still has to go when it comes to managing stardom, fan expectations, and athlete care. Clark deserves better. The fans deserve better. And frankly, the game deserves better. Because the next time a $500,000 game is on the line, no one should be finding out the star player is sitting 5 minutes before tip-off. The spotlight shifted from Clark's injury to the command structure behind the scenes. Fever head coach Stephanie White faced mounting heat from every angle. Why was Clark even practiced outside of a full recovery window? Who cleared her for that morning shoot-around? Why was the final decision pushed so close to tip-off, playoff style, leaving fans and opponents in limbo? White's public statements were vague, her tone apologetic yet evasive. The media and social platforms demanded clarity, but all she gave were rehearsed bullet points. Meanwhile, assistant coaches and team physicians, traditionally hidden in strategy meetings, were left out in the cold when lines of accountability were drawn. The silence wasn't just deafening, it was damning. Pressure mounted from front office analysts and ownership. Internal reviews were ordered, but in the court of public opinion, such internal audits aren't enough. The demand was for a mea culpa, front-page transparency, and movement toward policy change. Without those, Coach White's job security, already suspect, would now rest on a fragile thread. Behind the scenes, the Fever's management scrambled to contain the damage. Ticket refunds were debated, social media accounts went dark, and a PR team assembled to prevent bleeding across sponsorship deals. The league's legal department got involved due to ticketing language. If Clark was advertised and then pulled, does that trigger compensation clauses? The PR response team zealously crafted messaging. Caitlin Clark's health is paramount, and medical decisions supersede competition, but struggle with consistency. Between vague Instagram updates and SEC-mandated disclosures, the Fever walked a tightrope between transparency and self-protection. Their missteps triggered a backlash so strong it began pressuring other franchise front offices to reassess their injury alert protocols, creating a league-wide ripple effect. Let's be honest, this was Caitlin Clark's show from day one. And when she went down, the ripple across the roster was immediate and palpable. Players expecting to play alongside her, physically and mentally, found themselves scrambled. Veterans felt abandoned. Role players felt thrown into the deep end without support. Kelsey Mitchell, suddenly thrust into a defensive trap-filled lineup, saw her usage percentage spike overnight, right in the middle of the biggest game of the season. Aaliyah Boston had to shift from rotational scoring to pulling double duty on both ends of the floor. Younger players like Ryan Howard and Aaliyah Boston tried to fill in, but the lines and sets didn't adapt fast enough. Even more damaging, the hidden emotional burden. Source accounts show locker room tension grew as vocal players questioned whether the coach's transparent decisions were faith-based or injury-driven. That internal erosion is harder to patch than any exo adjustment, and it lingers beyond a single loss or season. Online it exploded. Fever socials flooded faster than any game's highlight clip. Fans didn't just vent, they dismantled the team. Conspiracy theories ran rampant. Sabotage, mischief tickets, season rerouting. It didn't matter whether any carried truth. The volume did. X, formerly Twitter, became a battleground. Hashtag refund Clark trended. Blonde joke memes circulated. Attendance at junior leagues dropped as families reconsidered buying WNBA tickets. The fan base fractured between the loyal and the burned. And more frightening, many said, I might not come back. For the Fever, that meant immediate brand damage. Subscriptions dropped. Partnerships with regional sponsors tightened. Local restaurateurs saw Clark-themed parties canceled. The ripple effect was real and economically threatening. The WNBA commissioner's office couldn't ignore a storm this loud. Internal working groups assembled. Injury management and player disclosure became a top-tier urgent memo. Teams were told to expect league-mandated communication windows. 24 hours, 12 hours, 6 hours. Each update had guidelines on phrasing, transparency, and timing. Medical privacy laws had to be respected, but the expectation for accountability now got codified. Vague updates would bring fines. But leaking internal policy changed the narrative. Savvy fans quoted memos. Leaks got out that organizations were being told how to phrase statements so as to not reveal medical details, drawing ire from patient advocates and transparency watchdogs. Now, league consultants were circulating. Brand is everything. Fans are watching. Star is your business. So the regulator turned trade trainer. Policy became media consultant, player advocate, and brand manager all at once. Pressure for a universal star presence notification protocol hit full throttle. A player who is a household name, now placed in a new category that brought both promise, uniformity, and threat, central audit, league-level interrogation. It's called the Clark effect because it reminds everyone one star's presence changes everything. Ticket sales surge. Network interest spikes. Youth enrollment doubles. Parity hopes reemerge. But with that influence comes fragility. One blown injury announcement can unravel weeks of brand work. The league strategy committees recognize that Clark-level players aren't just athletes anymore. They're assets, and assets require portfolio-level insurance. Whether medical, media, or PR, each area got pulled into a grid. The Commissioner's Cup final failure has become a case study. Internal webinars planned, crisis simulations drafted, playbooks created. So what happens now? What steps can actually fix this? Clark's press conference. She needs to speak. Fans won't accept management statements without her voice. A brief video addressing regret, commitment to return, appreciation would help reset tone. Fever-led town hall. Invite season ticket holders, fans, medical staff, and front office to a digital town hall. Don't just explain, listen. Refund structure won't matter if you don't show empathy. League memo rollout. Release the new 24/12/6 window policy publicly. Transform internal urgency into transparency. Free-to-view league replay. Rest and rebuild timeline. Clark's long-term health is paramount. A release outlining estimated return, rehab plan, and mid-season updates ties a recovery narrative to optimism, not secrecy. Cultural restructuring. Fever may need to reconfigure leadership, re-engage veteran voices, create a media liaison role specifically for player injury communications, integrate PR and medical staff travel rotations. Finally, this is a map for every player, health media, brand, none stand alone anymore. If your injury becomes a controversy, it will define your career. Today's player gets marketed. Hidden rehab hurts. The ROI of star visibility is enormous, but so is risk. Clark is learning that early. She's plateauing in front of millions. The world is watching how she and the Fever handle this curveball, because this becomes a template. How they walk through this matters more than the injury. Industries outside sports are watching too. Brands, agencies, global investors, all taking notes. The fallout from Caitlin Clark's absence wasn't just a bad look. It exposed the Indiana Fever's underbelly. This is a franchise that begged for a generational talent, begged for the media storm, and when it came, they couldn't handle the lightning. This team asked Caitlin Clark to carry their offense, the ticket sales, the post-game interviews, and the pressure of saving the league. But when it came time to protect her, to actually support her body and her future, they threw her back out on the court half healthy, in a high-stakes game with a broken communication chain and no contingency plan. Now, they're not just down a star for a game. They're fighting off the image of being the team that couldn't protect the crown jewel of the WNBA. And that stigma won't go away with a few PR posts and medical updates. It's going to take change. Real, structural change, from medical accountability to leadership transparency. The fans deserve better. You had fans flying across the country to see Caitlin Clark. Young girls with her jersey. Families spending their savings on Commissioner's Cup tickets to witness history. And they didn't just lose out on seeing their favorite player. They felt misled, left in the dark until the last possible minute, forced to swallow disappointment without clarity or respect. You can't treat fans like that. Not in 2025. Not when they are the lifeblood of your league's growth. Not when you're building a women's sports renaissance around transparency, empowerment, and access. If the WNBA wants to prove it's ready for the big stage, it has to start acting like it. That means treating star player availability as sacred. That means planning for injury contingencies, not just for games, but for messaging and marketing. Because when you fumble to roll out this badly, fans don't just feel disappointed. They feel lied to. Clark's silence, and what comes next. Caitlin Clark hasn't spoken yet. And honestly, that silence is deafening. Whether it's strategic or emotional, her team should know this. Every day that passes without her voice, the narrative spirals. Fans want to know she's okay. Sponsors want to know the plan. And the league needs her leadership more than ever right now. Not just as a player, but as a symbol. What she says next will shape not just how this moment is remembered, but how the WNBA moves forward. Because this isn't just about a groin injury or a missed final. It's about what happens when greatness collides with dysfunction, and whether that greatness can still shine through the cracks. And that's a question only Caitlin Clark can answer. The legacy at risk. For all the hype, all the viral clips, and record-breaking viewership Caitlin Clark has brought to the WNBA, this episode is a reminder. Even legends in the making are human. They bruise, they break, and they burn out, especially when the systems around them aren't built to protect. This injury isn't just a plot twist in a rising star's career. It's a wake-up call for the entire league. Because if this is how the WNBA treats its most valuable player, what message does that send to every future draft pick, every overseas prospect, every sponsor? Caitlin Clark's journey is far from over, but the people around her, the coaches, the execs, the league office, they better start treating her like what she is, the foundation of a new era. Otherwise, the league might find itself with empty arenas, faded headlines, and a superstar who realized she deserved better. The tipping point. This moment will be studied, rewatched, and dissected, not because Clark missed a game, but because of what her absence revealed. It's a fault line in the WNBA's foundation. You can't sell out arenas, land million-dollar ad deals, and plaster a player across every media outlet, then fail to keep her healthy, respected, and informed. There's no growing pain. Excuse left. The WNBA isn't small anymore. This is big business. And with that comes big responsibility. Clark has already given more to this league in a few months than most stars do in years. She's redefined what's possible for women's sports. Now, it's time for the WNBA and the Fever to rise to the moment, to build infrastructure worthy of the star they've been blessed with. Because this isn't just about managing an injury. It's about proving that women's basketball is ready for the spotlight and that its biggest star won't be left stumbling in the dark. Protect her, support her, or watch everything she built start to fracture.